Hello and welcome to episode 131 of the HamCorp Training Manual. In this episode, we set up the pseudostable black hole containment field and also figure out an automation strategy. 64 benders. Now, I would like to request 3,667 extreme density space bending casings, but none of my CPUs were big enough until just now. I have upgraded an employee's CPU. It's now 128 megabytes with 128 co-processing lines. This is the sarcophagus in which this employee now rests, while their consciousness has been uploaded to the cloud. I think pretty soon we will be laying more employees to rest so that they can work, which means I kind of need to dig out some space to make this look nice. But anyway, let me get these space bending casings. I'm excited to see how long this takes. Alright, things are crafting. It's actually going pretty quickly. My new bottleneck is surprisingly fluid extraction. Or at least it was until just now. But now my bottleneck is fluid solidification. Previously I had this dual interface hooked up directly to the solidifier hatch, like this. But it processed the fluid so fast that it just wasn't keeping up. So what I've done here is I have a super tank buffer. And this seems to work. This seems to get filled up fast enough that it's able to keep up. And I just have a UV pump pumping into the solidifier on the back. And now this has been running perfectly fine with no interruptions. So now it's all the way up at 300% speed. Remember, the fluid shapers have to speed up to reach their maximum speed. But yeah, now it's going. And should be done. I don't want to say soon. But once this is done, I'll have a black hole compressor. And that should be able to make super dense plates much, much faster. In other news, I have made everything else required. I have basically everything here. The only thing left is, of course, the space bending casings, but also the controller itself. I don't really have anything to say about this. It's just a matter of, I have a few more dusts I need to mine up from space mining, but yeah, besides that, it's easy, done. I'm gonna have to wait a lot because I'm using the slow and cheap recipe for Molten Infinity. And also some other stuff probably needs some wait time, like a bit of hypogen. There's some space time if I remember correctly. In terms of infrastructure and things like that, materials, I'm basically there. It's just a matter of processing now. Not quite ready to put this together because I still need to make a black hole utility hatch. And this needs some redstone, basically. It's not too expensive, but I still need to make this. And also I need to make black hole seeds and black hole collapsers. The black hole seed is a space assembly recipe that uses some tartarite, and I will also need black hole collapsers. This is a very similar recipe. I kind of like the two different recipes. The seed, it has energized tesseracts, so you're like putting energy in, starting up a black hole, and the collapser is like the opposite. I also have found out that I'm going to need between 2 and 4 black holes to finish the game, so I'm going to plan for 3. And I think I'm going to make a new building and put it somewhere here. So this is near my particle accelerators. And the reason I'm doing this is to make fun of people who think that the LHC could potentially make a black hole that would destroy the Earth. That's funny. Now, here is something new I want to try with building montages. Occasionally, I've been asked how I come up with my building ideas, and honestly, I have no idea myself, so I'm just going to put my thoughts into words and see if that helps. I don't know if this is even going to make it into the video, but we'll see. So first of all, I'm seeing that this is super incomplete, so I would like to finish off this nuclear area. This building is empty, by the way. Anyway, I want to do that, and I also want to take this road, expand it out this way a bit, and then kind of loop it around. Maybe not this far, but somewhere here. Loop it around so that it connects up to where the black holes are going to go. Now for the actual structure, like I said before, I'm planning for 3 of these. I'm thinking of stacking 3 of these on top of each other. That way I can also wall share a little bit and save a few casings. Not that it's going to matter in the long run, but that's the plan. I don't want to box this away in a building because it looks so cool. I want it to be out in the open. So I will start by making enough space for 3 of them stacked on top of each other and placing scaffolding. Not scaffolding exactly, more like markers. So this is kind of what I meant by making markers. It will be pretty obvious to me where the structure boundaries are, and now I can pick up this controller and move it, and then I can stack 2 more structures on top. Let's get to building. That looks pretty good. I thought of this little idea here of using strips, pillars, posts, and I guess more strips of varying thickness to get this kind of like narrowing down effect. I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. I'm going to try and copy it over to the other sides. And then I think I'm just going to say it's done because I don't have the resources to build another 2 black hole compressors. So I'll just leave it as it is. And then when I make the next 2, hopefully that will be in 2.8 with the matter manipulator, and then I can easily copy and paste these slope bits. But for now, it's very simple, but I think it's actually pretty nice. I set up another Lapitronic supercapacitor. This one also has a UHV capacitor, so this is going to be wireless, and it's also going to cap me to 10 billion EU per tick. This is just lasered straight into the laser target hatch. I'm running this at 4096 amps of UHV. And of course, as a late game multi, this is not as simple as put in input and you get output. Well, it is and it isn't. So to get started, we need to insert a black hole seed to open a black hole. The black hole starts life at 100 stability and slowly decays by 1 per second until it reaches 0. And once it's at 0, the black hole is unstable. And when the black hole is unstable, recipes get voided. In terms of lore, this is something along the lines of having the items right next to the event horizon and then pulling them out, but when the black hole is unstable, the items cross the event horizon and you are no longer able to get them out. So it makes some sense that it would void recipes like that. Now, while it decays by 1 per second, you can halt the decay by inserting 1 liter a second of spacetime into specific hatches. That specific hatch has to go behind the laser. So on this side, I have a stocking input hatch. I haven't decided whether or not I want to deal with this yet, because I don't need to mass produce any plates, so I might just manually deal with stuff for now. But if I want, I could provide spacetime through here, and that would halt the decay process. Every 30 total seconds saved by spacetime insertion will double the cost per second. So we started providing 1 liter per second of spacetime. So after I provide 30 liters, it will have been 30 seconds, which means 30 seconds have been saved. At this point, the spacetime cost increases to 2, and then after another 30 seconds, it increases to 4, and then after another 30 seconds, it's 8, and then 16, and then 32. So it will add up the longer I keep the black hole stable. Inserting a black hole collapser will close the black hole, and I think this needs to happen even if the black hole reaches 0 stability, so it's not going to just evaporate by itself, even though it kind of should at that point. But at that point, I will basically need to start the whole process again. Now, naively, you would think that you just want to keep stability as high as possible, and that's not really true. What you really want is to have stability below 20, because then you get 4 times the parallels. Of course, that means you need to be quite precise with your spacetime insertion timings. And the way the automation needs to work for when I do automate this, I don't think I'm going to automate it today, but maybe I will. But when I do want to automate this, the logic is going to be, I request a craft. As soon as the items are in the bus ready to be crafted, then insert a black hole seed, wait 80 seconds so that the stability goes down to below 20. So we want it at 19. At that point, we start inserting spacetime. Of course, we are going to need to insert spacetime until the craft is done. And that can be a little complicated to calculate because different crafts are going to last different amounts of time. You're going to get a different number of parallels. And also the craft will still continue while the stability is over 20 and over 50. So it's a bit hard to say how much space-time you're going to need. You can calculate it, but it's going to be a different amount for every recipe, and I just don't want to deal with that. Also, every time I upgrade the voltage tier, it's going to mess it all up. So it has to be some kind of method that doesn't need me to manually encode the amount of space-time that goes in. I'm also a little suspicious of stocking input hatching it because I feel like it's just going to consume all of it, but that might need to be tested. I don't know if that's actually how it works. It might just take the amount it actually needs, but it could also take everything. Not sure. One final note is that the recipe tier is limited to hatch tier +1. So I have a UHV energy hatch or laser hatch, which means I can do up to UEV crafts, which is fine for now. I think very soon I'm going to need to automate this because I'm sure the Forge of the Gods needs tons and tons of super dense plates. It must, right? Surely. Oh, forget about super dense plates. I totally forgot. Eternal coils. The eternal singularities. This is 100 seconds in the compressor. Of course, this gets a speed boost. It's 400% faster. Well, it's 400% faster than single block machines, but there is no single block neutronium compressor, so I don't know what the speed of this is actually going to be. Is it going to be 20 seconds or 100 seconds? I have no idea. But yeah, so I am going to have to automate this, but I will do some testing and we'll see how this actually works. But before that, I gotta build up a bunch of space time. All right, I've just finished the automation. I have very low hopes that it's going to work first try, but we'll see. So let me see if this actually works. We can open the first black hole together. And if this actually works, then I'll explain my automation. I have a recipe for 150 eternal singularities. Let's see if this works out. Oh, okay. Here's the black hole. That's good. It is actually crafting stuff. Oh, and it is 400% faster than what the NEI says. So actually, I can do a lot more in this black hole lifespan. Okay, that's good to know. All right, well, my singularities are done, and you may notice I have made a few extra. That, I think, is just going to be a flaw of my automation for this specific recipe. And only this recipe, or I guess any recipe that uses molten spacetime in the recipe, which appears to only be this one. So this is the only recipe that's going to be a little buggy, glitchy. Now, I just want to see if this black hole is collapsed safely and correctly. And if it is, then I'll explain my automation. This right here is the spacetime halting the black hole collapse. So it's good that this seems to work. And it seems like stocking input hatches are fine. It doesn't consume everything at once. It just consumes what it needs, which is great. Ah, okay, so my black hole collapser logic is not correct. So I am going to fix that. For now, I'm just going to collapse it manually. But I'm going to fix this, and then we'll come back and talk about the actual logic. Okay, I think I fixed it. I haven't had a chance to test it with item input recipes. I've only done this one recipe so far. Just because I don't have enough transcendent metal at this exact moment to actually test the recipe, but I assume it's going to work the same. If it doesn't, then I'll come back to this. But let me explain the automation here. So, red is, as always, my mainnet. And here, purple/magenta is my black hole subnet. I have an output bus leading to the mainnet, of course. And the mainnet basically has nothing on it except for the interface that provides the input materials. This is set to blocking mode, and the subnet here has an advanced blocking card. So if anything is in the subnet, the red mainnet will not be able to push into the subnet. This subnet has storage for 3 different types of items. I guess it doesn't need to be. I guess it can just be 1. And 1 type of fluid. Underneath this wireless connector is a stocking input bus, advanced stocking input bus, set to auto pull. And over here is an advanced stocking input hatch set to auto pull. So items will be immediately drawn into the machine. This wireless connector is simpler. It leads here, where there is a toggle bus leading to a stocking input hatch set to molten spacetime. Now that I think about this, I actually need a second fluid storage cell or a multi-fluid storage cell, but I'll fix that later. There's a toggle bus here because we don't want this to be pulling spacetime all the time. We only want it to pull spacetime when a certain bit of logic is met. I'll come back to this logic. This other wireless receiver leads into the structure, where there's basically a little room here where I can put my redstone logic, and this is where I've hidden it away. The wireless connector connects here. This one simply has a level emitter and a fluid level emitter, both set to emit when levels are above or equal, and both set to 1 with nothing in the filter. So if the subnet has any items or any fluids at all, one or both of these signals will be on. These lead to an OR gate and a NAND gate. I think the NAND gate section can use a little bit of refining. I need to think about it a little more, but I will come back to that. The OR gate is going to stay, and if either of these signals are on, aka if there are either fluids or items, then we get a signal that goes to a pulse former, and the pulse former leads to a dropper. This dropper will have the black hole seed in it. So when input items enter the subnet, a pulse is sent to the dropper, and the dropper will submit one singular black hole seed into this ULV input bus, and that turns on the black hole. Here I have a black hole utility hatch set to pulse mode, which means synchronized with the machine. Once per second, this hatch will emit a pulse while there is a black hole active. The black hole can be stable, it can be unstable, it can be extra stabilized by the spacetime, it doesn't matter. This will constantly tick at an exactly 1 per second rate, perfectly synchronized with the machine, which is very handy. The signal goes to a counter. The counter is set to a maximum of 81, increment 1, and decrement 81. So every time this ticks, the counter increases by 1, and once the counter reaches 81, this dial will point all the way to the right, and we'll get a signal that goes into this wireless transmitter. This is the same signal that leads to this receiver, so we start pulling spacetime when that counter has reached 81. And since this is once per second while a black hole is active, what's basically happened is I've waited 81 seconds with an active black hole before turning on the flow of spacetime to stabilize the black hole. At this point, the craft is ongoing, spacetime is being consumed to stabilize the black hole, and eventually we'll either run out of input materials or spacetime. Hopefully, input materials, because if we run out of spacetime, there may not be enough time to finish the craft and we'll start voiding materials, which is not great. That's where the recipe configuration comes in. I do have to do a little bit of math. I didn't want to, but I kind of have to. And this math is slightly wrong because I didn't account for the 5 times speed of the black hole compressor. So really, these should be 5 times the amounts, except for this spacetime. This should be 450. I'll come back to that. So at this point, the input materials are gone. The spacetime has been all consumed up. And now what happens is this fluid level emitter and this level emitter are both off because the subnet is empty. The NAND gate turns on, leading to a pulse former. This emits a pulse, which leads to the counter, which resets the counter. At the same time, the signal also goes here to this toggle bus. Remember, the signal has been off until now. That turns on the toggle bus, that turns on this fluid level emitter, and if I have less than 2 spacetime, we trigger this dropper to put in the black hole collapser. And I'm starting to think this whole setup is not really necessary. I just need to connect this red alloy wire to the dropper so that when everything is emptied, we just turn off the black hole. Not totally sure. I think that would work, but this seems to also work, so I don't really want to touch it. Now, that little bit of math I mentioned before, the amount of spacetime used by the machine and the amount of time the machine is on are sort of related. Not sort of, they are related. So the black hole compressor consumes this amount of spacetime in total. 30 times 2 to the n minus 1. This is the amount of spacetime consumed in liters for n, what do I want to call it? Cycles of spacetime operation? It's basically the number of 30-second increments that we've kept the black hole stable. So if I don't provide any spacetime at all, and the black hole just runs for 100 seconds, then n is 0. If I provide exactly enough spacetime so that the black hole is stable for 30 seconds extra, then n is 1. If it's for a minute extra, then n is 2, and so on. The total time that the black hole remains on is 100 plus 30 times n. So this can be configured a little bit. It's a bit of math, but whatever. When I do need to reconfigure, I'm just going to come back to this video and do that, unless I find some other better solution for this. So with my current configuration of providing 450 liters of molten spacetime, in addition to any inputs, my black hole compressor will be on for 220 seconds. That seems to be enough to do basically every craft, 220 seconds is pretty good. It's going to be able to do a lot of crafting. So nice. Now I can work on the UIV coil. Thank you for watching this episode of the HamCorp training manual. In the next episode, we will hopefully craft the UIV component assembly line and continue working towards internal coils. Mark V fusion and UMV circuits are also on the table. That said, the power situation is starting to falter, and it may be time to scale up power production. See you next time.